Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and you're listening to Job Search Radio. Yay! Now, I had a technical problem at the beginning of the show, and I didn't adequately introduce my guest. So his name is Warren C. White. For some reason, it didn't record. So I just want to make sure you know that Warren White is my guest. And we have a fun conversation talking about networking, including hugging the wall, elevator pitches, which, by the way, I'm not a big fan of, but he makes palatable to me, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're doing a show called How to Network, and I think you'll find it very helpful because this is the show about one-on-one or one-in-a-group networking that most other podcasts don't really address. So hang in there, enjoy the ride, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Are you looking for a new job or interested in leveling up? Job Search Radio is your go-to resource for insider tips on job hunting and growing your career. Here's your host, Jeff Altman.
Warren is based out of the Baltimore area, and he has so many abbreviations after his name. SPHR, CPRW, SHRM, SCP, PHR, CDR, all of which translates into he's been helping people find work for a long time and takes his career seriously. Oh, I forgot to mention, he mentors incubator firms too. Warren, welcome to Job Search Radio. Great to have you on board.
Thank you, Jeff, and it's great to be here. Thank you for selecting me to participate with you, go on this journey with you. I was actually thinking the abbreviations were starting to look a little light, so I'm looking for some new ones to add to the end there.
MIC.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll spare everyone the rest of the song. So, networking. Mm-hmm. People find this so painful to do. Personally, I find that a lot of fun, but why do you think people struggle with networking?
Well, it's funny. Networking, I think introverts hate it because it's hard for them. It's difficult. You've got to kind of put yourself out there a little bit and move, sometimes pretty far outside your comfort zone in order to be able to do it. And I think, one of the secrets that people don't know is that extroverts, and I would consider myself to be an extrovert, and I think pretty much everybody that's even knows me a little bit would pretty much agree with that statement. Extroverts find it just a little bit forced. It's kind of like we like to go to parties and socialize with people that we know, but when it's a networking event, it's just a little bit more forced. And so, it creates a little bit of apprehension there. But networking is really the fuel that keeps the business engine moving. So whether you're an individual that's looking for a job, whether you are a small business owner, whatever position you're in, networking is really the stuff that kind of keeps things moving.
I agree wholeheartedly. Because when push comes to shove, folks, when you think about it, statistics are real clear. Maybe 6% of jobs are filled by job boards, and maybe 20% are filled by recruiters. Mm-hmm. And overwhelmingly, positions are filled through networking. And I keep quoting the statistic on the show because when I heard it, it just dropped me in my tracks. And that is, if 70% of all positions are filled by networking, and that's the conventional number. Mm-hmm. 70% of the 70% are filled as a result of introductions to people that you didn't know at the beginning of your search.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't stress how important it is for people to do it. And, hopefully we can, during the course of our conversation, give people a little bit ideas, a few ideas to sort of demystify it a little bit, make it a little bit easier for them to kind of get out there and attend those events and meet people and talk to them.
So someone walks into an event, it relates to their profession. Do you want to start with professional
sure,
network?
Absolutely.
Right. So they come into a network meeting, they're meeting someone there, and they suddenly wonder what they're going to say. Where should someone start off? How should they begin their networking journey?
Well, I think the important thing here is to really have an elevator pitch. And the whole concept of an elevator pitch comes about, if you were to walk into an office building and let's say that you're on the elevator, you're headed up to the 50th floor and the elevator stops at 2, and and everybody else on the elevator gets off. The CEO of this company that you really want to work for gets on and hits 50, the doors close, and he says, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And you've got 49 floors to sort of give that person a little bit more information about yourself that makes them curious and makes them want to learn a little bit more. So that's really the key. That's where the whole concept comes from.
I always get nervous with elevator pitches because all I hear are these contrived, forced, really painful ones where it almost sounds like, excuse my language, someone's vomiting on top of me. So often I tell people ditch the pitch and just talk to someone, like they're a person about what you do. So what were you, it's okay if we disagree.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think this is where I think people run afoul with the idea of an elevator pitch. So they are into the idea that, okay, I should have an elevator pitch. I should have some bullet points that I would tell people about myself, but I don't want to rehearse it because I don't want it to sound forced. I want it to sound natural and all those kinds of things. And actually it's the opposite. You want to rehearse that elevator pitch so often that it just becomes part of your rote memory. And that's when it just becomes more natural and seems like you're talking about like more of a conversation, because I certainly have been in those networking events where somebody comes up to you and it's just kind of awkward and robotic and it's not really, feels forced. It just feels uncomfortable. That's typically from under rehearsing the elevator pitch rather than over rehearsing it. Because if you rehearse it to the point where it becomes part of your memory, you can kind of do it without really even sort of thinking about it. And then it becomes more natural. It becomes a part of your memory, becomes a part of your vocabulary, and it just doesn't seem so forced. It seems more like a back and forth, a natural part of the conversation.
I'm a big believer in preparation. Mm-hmm. And so often job hunters fail to prepare every step along the way. And I always compare them to professional athletes. Professional athletes spend a lifetime for those individual magic moments where they are presented with something where their body has to respond instantaneously from instinct. And all that preparation kicks in. Soldiers are the same way. Mm-hmm. That preparation kicks in and it comes out naturally. Right. And job hunters, because they're underprepared, often put themselves in the position of failure because they haven't done any rehearsal. Mm-hmm. And they wonder that the athlete's making $15 million and they're making 50.
And it's funny that you bring up that analogy because I see athletes interviewed all the time right after that moment. And, almost all the time you hear them and they, people are asking them, hey, how did you do that? What was going through your head? And they have no idea. They can't tell you because nothing's going through their mind. They've done it thousands of times at that point. All of the preparation has led up to that moment. And in the moment itself, their body is really just reacting and responding. They're not really thinking about things or going through strategy or any of those kinds of things. That time was for earlier in the game. But in those moments, their body really just responds naturally. It's the same thing really with the elevator pitch. If you can rehearse it to the point where you just know it and it just flows, it won't seem so forced and so rehearsed. And it'll really be, as opposed to being a barrier to conversation, which it can be if it's not well rehearsed, it'll open up the opportunity for conversation. Hopefully, the idea is to get someone to ask you a question that you can then parlay into a more extended conversation.
Agreed. And we're going to be back with more from Warren in just a moment. But first, my job search insider tip, which today is also going to be a sports one. Because it's Monday, yesterday was football. There are these types of games that I think really offer a teaching lesson for job hunters. And they're nicknamed trap games. Trap games are the games that you think you're going to play. Like when you look at the schedule and you see that game, you circle it, that you're going to win it. And it's almost like you feel like all you have to do is show up and you're going to have a W in the win column. And in point of fact, they're called traps because people fall into a trap of believing that the game is going to be easy. How many times, well, I can tell you how many times, I've warned job hunters about that final interview with the executive poobah in charge of such and such. And lo and behold, they go in for this interview and they fail. And they fail because they fail to realize that this person is viewing you as a person that's going to reflect on them. And they drill in their hard to evaluate and assess you, and someone's completely unprepared. There is no game, there is no interview that you can play that is going to be an easy one. Everyone's looking for exceptional talent. Everyone is looking for people who can meet their criteria, and everyone along the way is evaluating and assessing you hard. Do not fall for it's just a formality warning or briefing that you get from a recruiter, from HR, from the hiring manager, from whomever. Treat it seriously. Be just as prepared for that interview as you are for any other interview in this process. So that's my tip for this show. If you like that one, you want to hear or watch more, visit my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. There's a lot more there that you can watch, listen to, or read to help you find work more quickly. Now let's get back to Warren and learn more about elevator pitches. So give me a sense of what a typical elevator pitch should sound like, if you would.
So, you want to sound, again, tone is important here. It should be conversational in tone. It shouldn't sound, again, hopefully you've rehearsed it to the point where it just kind of flows easily. So, for instance, if I'm on the elevator, I might tell someone, for the majority of the last 15 or 20 years, I've worked directly in HR and in career transition. And so having had the opportunity to sit on either side of the fence, I've had the opportunity to help businesses find great talent, and I've had the opportunity to help talent find great businesses. So it's been a unique combination of skill sets, and it's been an interesting, experience working on both sides of the fence, trying to help folks do those kinds of things. So something along those lines, just careful in tone and conversational, that type of thing. Doesn't sound real. Hopefully that didn't sound very rehearsed. Didn't sound very forced. Just sound like kind of a natural conversation. And then you might follow that up with, you can either ask that person a question, or hopefully they've asked you a question, and the conversation just starts to kind of flow from there. The idea is it's a conversation starter, not a conversation stopper, hopefully.
And stoppers are these contrived ones. I make mountains out of molehills in businesses. These contrived statements that just cause people to retch whenever they hear them. And I know for myself, because I'm an ex-New Yorker, and I remember meeting so many people in elevators who would try and pitch me that I would just pause and go, oh, man, I just want to get out of here. Mm-hmm. I really don't care what this person's saying to me because, they don't have a touch for the audience. And that's really, as a headhunter, notice that the headhunter, what I'm looking for is someone who not only has the skills, but can present themselves effectively to a client. And that involves human-to-human interaction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single person in an organization, whether they work in sales or not, is a salesperson. So they all represent the organization in some way, whether it's internally with other employees that they may represent, or externally with external business partners, third parties, any of those types of things. Everybody's got to have the ability to represent the organization in a positive way. And the last thing, to kind of carry the elevator analogy further, the last thing you want to have happen is for that CEO to get on floor 2 and you start talking and all of a sudden they press 8 and they want to get off. That's the last thing you want to have happen.
Yeah, I agree.
We've all been in that elevator. Jeff, I'm sure you've been in that elevator yourself a couple of times.
Quite a few times.
Yeah,
quite a few.
Absolutely.
Incredibly painful.
Absolutely.
And folks were using the notion of the elevator pitch as a metaphor. Sometimes it's a phone conversation where I'm evaluating someone and they're just trying to use what are called tie-down closes with every second sentence. Mm-hmm. And I did this on one interview for the show, as a matter of fact. Someone is in your seat, Warren, and every second or third sentence involves a tie-down close, which means they're looking for an agreement every third sentence. Mm-hmm. And I just said to her, are you going to try this every time, or can we just have a conversation? So we've got an elevator pitch. We're at the networking meeting. We give the elevator pitch, and we're not just simply promoting ourselves and just talking about what we do, right?
Mm-hmm. No, one of the biggest things about networking is go into it with the idea that you will give more than you plan to receive. This being approaching the holiday season, I think that's probably a good metaphor to set things off. But the idea is you want to be able to kind of give the benefit of your expertise, the value that you bring, your value proposition. You want to be able to give that to people in a way that, you may actually be able to help them solve a business problem. Okay. So don't, going into a networking event thinking, okay, what am I going to get out of this? Might not necessarily be the right strategy. Going to an event, I think, with the idea of what can I contribute to this? Who might I meet today that I might be able to do something for? And whether or not that ultimately results in, okay, that person hires me, those kinds of things, that's not really what it's about. It's really about, kind of being sincere in wanting to make a contribution, wanting to reach out and help someone, because what I've found, and Jeff, you may have found similarly, when I've extended myself to someone else to try and help them, usually when I'm in a position where I need someone to help, I usually have 5 people saying, hey, I'd be happy to help you. So you just you want to put yourself in a position where you're that person who adds value rather than seeks value.
You hit on 2 points that are wonderful. Folks, we've all heard the expression, give more, get more. Folks, this is a time where it's so important for you to be giving and not just simply acting in a way where it's all about you. Mm-hmm. I want the job. Give me a job. When you do that, I don't know how it is for you, but when people conduct themselves with others in that way, the first thing that you want to do is tune out and head for the hills, right? Mm-hmm. Why would you expect anyone else to behave differently? And Warren hit on another great point. We're recording this before Thanksgiving. And I must tell you, folks, this begins the networking bonanza period, because everyone is far more social and friendly during the holiday periods. You can open up many more conversations with folks that you haven't talked to in a long time, whether it's sending them an email, sending them a card, putting a phone call in, and just saying, hi, how are you? It's been a long time. Thought I would call you for the holidays and see how it's just casual kind of stuff to check back in, and then from there, after the new year, you can build on that and start working on transforming the relationship again into one where you're helping them and they're helping you.
Absolutely, Jeff. I couldn't agree with that more. As a matter of fact, I always think, job seekers, what I've talked to in the past, kind of around this time of year, they sort of kind of shut down because they're like, oh, businesses aren't doing much hiring and there's not a lot going on and people are out of the office and all of those kinds of things. And while that may be true to some extent, exactly what you've said. I mean, the networking opportunities around this time of year are just abundant. And you want to be able to, if you're a savvy job seeker, this is a great time to start putting yourself in a position so that when the first quarter hiring starts after the first of the year, you've already made some of those connections. You've already, kind of spoken to some of those people, whether it's meeting people that you don't know already or refreshing former relationships with other former coworkers, people you went to college with, those types of things. You've already kind of laid some of the groundwork so that, come first of the year, hey, we need a junior accountant. Well, you've already, started to do some of the networking, and maybe you already have that connection there that's going to give you the edge up. So I can't agree with Gills.
Absolutely. And I mentioned this, I believe, in an earlier insider tip. But the other great time of the year is late September, because many companies are doing the finalizing of the budget. Mm-hmm. And often, if you reach out to executives during that time, what you're able to do is, maybe they get the idea to write you into the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's too late for that now, but, thinking ahead for those of you who listen to this show to every October or every mid-September is another great time for networking, to reach out, just say, hi, how are you? Mention that you are looking for something, and Lord knows that former manager may want to bring you on board.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we've got the elevator pitch, we've got the holiday schedule and networking.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at the party, networking events.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're getting cornered by that person who just wants to talk incessantly about themselves. Mm-hmm. What do you do? How do you get out of that?
So this is a good strategy that I like to use, and it can work at a lot of different levels. I like to go to a networking event with one person I know, at least one person I know. Now, you probably don't want to go to an event with 5 or 6 people because human nature is you'll end up spending the entire evening speaking to the 5 or 6 people that you already know and not building new connections, which should be a goal if you're going to a networking event. But if you go with that one person that that person, that knows you pretty well, who you can kind of make eye contact with, who might be able to come rescue you if you're trapped in one of those kind of conversations. I always find that that's useful. I've got a neighbor and a colleague of mine that we partner up frequently and go to networking events for just that purpose. We'll kind of split up when we first get there, kind of go our separate ways, have our conversations, and at some point, one of us will make eye contact, and that's the signal, hey, get me out of this conversation. So that's a good, helpful strategy to kind of get you out of that a little bit.
Have you tried the texting the friend while you're there, saying, I need to text my wife about something. Bear with me 1 second, and then going, help!
That's a good one, too. Or texting your friend and saying, call me right now. That kind of thing. That'll work, too. It's a little bit less subtle, but definitely effective.
You pretend you're texting the wife, husband, partner, whomever.
Absolutely.
It's a fun idea.
Sure.
So now we have the exit strategy to get ourselves disengaged from the obnoxious person. What other sorts of things should people do at networking functions to make them successful?
Well, I think it's good to go in with a plan, and it doesn't have to be I have to meet everyone in the room. If you go in with that kind of mindset, it's just overwhelming. There are hundreds and hundreds of people at these events. You're not going to meet everybody. But I try to go to a networking event with a goal of meeting 3 people that I don't already know. It doesn't matter what they do, what their backgrounds are, those types of things. I just want to meet and start to have some sort of meaningful conversation with 3 people that I don't already know. Following the event, what I tend to do is follow up with those folks on LinkedIn. But more than that, what I use that to do is to drive kind of an offline, smaller networking event. Hey, I'd love to sit down with you and grab a coffee sometime. Hey, can we grab lunch? You want to have breakfast, something along those lines. So now you've gone to a larger event. You've gone in with a very modest goal of meeting 3 people. You've collected the business cards. You've reached out to those people on LinkedIn, so you're sort of growing your network that way, and you're expanding into their network of people. But then you're also taking it the next step, following up with that person to really try and deepen a real-world relationship, and just meeting up with them for coffee, getting to know each other a little bit better, those types of things. So now you're really kind of driving it forward, and you've now got it into a little bit smaller networking event, because that still counts. Having coffee with somebody one-on-one, still networking, but it's a little bit more comfortable situation for most people because it's more manageable. It's just one-on-one. And now you're actually starting to build a real-world relationship that, could bear fruit for both of you down the line. I mean, that's the goal. What you really want to do is make real relationships that bear fruit for both parties. That should be the express goal.
Absolutely. It's not the networking that causes you to get the referral. It's the relationship between you and the other person that does it. And And you're not going to close the deal, to use sales jargon, the first time you meet someone, any more than on a date that you meet for the first time in a bar. The likelihood is you're not going to close the deal the first time. So the question becomes, how do you go further? And, it's like dating. You develop the relationship so that there's interest on both sides, so that there's a relationship that's building of cooperation, mutual respect, and and we do more things for people than we like than we do for absolute strangers. So the contacting after the event is really the pivotal thing. So you mentioned the business cards. Folks, you need to have your own card or a way that you can communicate your contact information from your phone to any other device. So I don't have a great tool for that. If I do, I'll put it into the show notes before the show goes live, but I have to do a little bit of research on that. Do you know of anything like that where someone can... I know there used to be a product called Bump, but that got acquired and disappeared. But do you know of something where someone can just transmit their information from one phone to another?
There are a couple other products. Nothing really immediately comes to mind, but Bump was the one that I had in mind when you were saying that. I know there are one or two other products out there, but in terms of the names, nothing immediately comes to mind. But I'm sort of old school. I still believe in the value of an actual business card. So I agree with you. I think it's important to have that and to have that, actual exchange. But yes, you can, it's 2015 and I will cede to technology that, we've all got cell phones now. Maybe it would be okay to be able to exchange information in that format as well.
And I'll tell you what I do when I meet folks. I hand them my phone and say, please enter your contact information. So, you make sure that it's right when they're entering it in,
right.
or like giving the wrong phone number, there's a message in that.
I got a lot of those wrong phone numbers in high school, so I'm a little skittish on that one.
I'm sorry, Warren. I hit a sensitive topic. I apologize. So we're starting to bump up on time with one another. I want to make sure that the points that you want to cover here are covered. So what haven't I asked you about yet that you think would be valuable for people to hear about?
Well, I think it's just the idea of going into a networking event with a plan, whether that is to meet 3 people, meet 5 people, go in with a plan that's manageable, that's actionable. Don't set yourself to a standard that you're not going to attain. There's really little point to going to a networking event if you have no intent to following up after the fact, because really that's just kind of going out for a drink, which you don't need to go to a networking event to do. The other thing I like to do, because even I will hem and haw over a networking event after I've, been working an entire day, that kind of thing. Do I really want to go? Usually, if there's an event that has a fee, the second it pops up, I will go ahead and register and pay the fee, because later on down the line, that eliminates an excuse for me. It's not like I have to go and register for the event. I've already spent the money. And so that kind of makes me say, well, I already spent the $30, so I might as well go for an hour or two and see how it goes.
Bingo, great strategy. And I must, in all honesty, say, folks, when you were 17 or 18 years old and had the opportunity to go to a party, meet a bunch of new people, meet someone else, a lot of us really didn't get skittish about doing that. We dove headlong into that process. And networking events are kind of like going to a party, except you got business cards.
Right.
And you're going to find strangers to talk to. Some are going to be interesting, many are not. And you're going to go home and try and connect with the ones that you think are going to be interesting to you. And the ones that you aren't, maybe you're going to try and connect with those too and see if your judgment was right or wrong. But at the end of the day, it's like going to a party. And you have to go into a party with that feeling of fun and, dare I say, the spirit of play associated with it. So this way, you're not sitting there like that depressed, serious person who no one really wants to talk to. And you're not stuck against the wall. You're out in the middle of the room talking to people where the action really is. And just remember, it can be fun if you go into it with a fun attitude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're right. For a lot of people, it's going to require them to force themselves maybe a couple inches outside their comfort zone, but that's okay.
Absolutely. And so, folks, get away from the wall. The wall is not your friend there. The wall is not going to get you a job, but the wall is going to be your excuse and your safety blanket, and you don't need a security blanket. What you need is our connections there. Mm-hmm. So, Warren, thank you so much for making time today. How can people find out about you and the work that you do?
Well, so the easiest place to track me down is at my website, which is www.warrencwhite.com. Pretty easy to remember. There are some other Warren C. Whites out there, but accept no substitutes. I am the authentic warrencwhite.com. But all my information in terms of social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of those kinds of things is there. If you'd like to read a couple of more of the things that I've written about job search, you can find that on my Contently profile, and that's warrenwhite.contently.com. And lastly, I'm going to be giving a workshop at Betamore. So if you happen to be in the Baltimore area, December 16th, probably around 5:30. The details on that will come out in the next couple of days, but I'll be giving a workshop for job seekers as well at Betamore. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Cool. And folks, we'll be back next time with more advice to help you find work quickly. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I've mentioned my website, thebiggamehunter.us, but I also want to mention that if you're looking for someone to coach you to play the job search bigger or coach you to help make your career work better for you, you'll find out about that on my website as well, and ask me to do coaching with you, because I help people play the game bigger and play to win as opposed to finding a job. Now, I can help you make the process a lot more fun than you normally have experienced. So, again, it's at my website, thebiggamehunter.us. So I'm Jeff Altman. Hope you have a great day. Take care.
For more job search advice, visit Jeff's website at thebiggamehunter.us. That's thebiggamehunter.us.